Welcome to Dr. Roger and Friends, the bright side of longevity, hosted by three Ps in a podcast, Doc Roger, Teresa, and Danielle. Thanks for joining us for Coffee and Conversation. The following podcast, featuring Maestro David Dworkin, was recorded prior to the U.S. seeing the corona pandemic at its height, but the content is very applicable in today's times. Thank you for tuning in. Welcome back for part 2 of our 2-part series, Your Life as a Symphony, How Music Influences Lifestyle, Longevity, and Quality of Life. And once again, we are joined by special guest Maestro David Dworkin, who has led orchestras across America and abroad and has performed around the world. So I notice, like, if instrumental music is playing when I'm meditating, sometimes I use music, sometimes I don't, that when there's music playing, I'll have all these images pop up, rivers, mountains, snowy landscapes. And I was actually surprised because I was thinking that's coming from me, my own brain. But I've learned that composers can purposefully create music to evoke very specific images in our brain. How is that possible? And in your opinion, can music be used to enhance mindfulness?
Yes. Broad question. And there are many examples, of exactly what you're speaking of. One of the most known, I would think, is On the Trail from the Grand Canyon Suite by Ferdi-Grosset. Dum, ding, dum, ding, dum, ding, dum, 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 dum. And if you're my age, you remember Call for Philip Morris, which you're not allowed to do anymore. But this was, a lot of people know this. They teach this in school if there is a music program. And it stirs up this clickety-click of a donkey walking down the trail to the Grand Canyon. But Beethoven, in his 6th Symphony, when he supposedly added a 5th movement, it's not really a 5th movement, it's all together. He has this 3rd movement, which is a dance. And then what happens? It starts to rain and thunder with the timpani making these thunderous sounds. And then the clouds roll by. And now it's a blue sky. And all these images is what he wanted. There's a work called The Moldau by a Czech composer named Smetana. The Moldau is a river. And how do rivers start? Up in the mountains with a stream, one stream, then another stream. And he notates this in his music. Then it becomes the full stream, and then he wants to show culture of his nation. So the first thing is a hunting scene, and you hear hunting horns. And then there's a wedding scene by the river. And then it's nightfall and the moon shines. But he notates all this. And there are many more. Vivaldi, the 4 seasons, winter, spring, summer, fall,
I've seen you so many times do the Peer Gynt Suite with sunrise.
Absolutely, absolutely. Images in the mind. But what you had said, Roger, early on with the neurologist talking about memory in music, they can be either negative or positive. Oh, when I was 18 years old was the first time this gentleman kissed me, and I remember the music that was there. Or on the opposite end of it, this guy told me he's leaving me, and I was so sad. And this was playing in the background, and for some reason you remember and relate this music, and they're making studies of that now. So it's such a powerful tool, or I don't even like tool, force in our world. And it's just a shame more of us aren't using what's there. And we use it sometimes not even knowing. It's always around. But we don't listen to it. And that's one of the things I like to try to do in the program, to actually listen,
So what would you recommend? You said about music education, music appreciation. If the maestro were king, or the maestro has his orchestra the whole world, how would you direct us?
My lottery ticket. I have it here. This is my lottery ticket when I get this. Well, it's obvious, and the young lady said it, to start early. Start early playing all kinds of music, of course, the world music, the symphonic literature, and then having the students aware of timbre, of sounds. And we were starting to say that. My brother lives in Oak Ridge, Tennessee, and he's going to be 93 in September. My sister was just 91 in the end of February. And we don't see each other, but we call. And especially my brother. If my brother calls me during the middle of the week instead of Sunday at 11 o'clock, I say, "Who's this?" I don't know what's happening with the brain. You can recognize sound. And we've all had the experience, oh, Dad's home, because you hear the car door close. And it immediately triggers something in the brain that says, Dad's home. I heard the car door close, and that meant whatever time it was that sound, that particular sound, was in the brain. I would train young people to really listen and to know what an oboe sounds, or a bassoon, or a viola, or a cello, just as we can recognize your voice, or Teresa's voice, or Danielle's voice. After a while, it's spontaneous. And that is an amazing thing to me. There are some people, I guess, that sound alike and look alike, but that's rare. All these different sounds out there. And to really be aware of sounds. In the morning, we have glorious bird sounds. And it's one of my favorite times in the morning, just listening to these sounds.
You're talking about mindfulness, and we know that is that enriches us, that helps mood, does all the things that music does. And so paying attention to the sounds is being mindful. And that is only salubrious, we would say. It is only makes for better health.
I always say it this way. I'd say Sanjay Gupta told me, and 70 million others, because it was on television, that music, certain kinds of music, expands the arteries, that actually allows the arteries to relax and expand, whereas other dissonant sounds, and I guess that could be in nature or walking in New York City, actually contract the arteries and create problems. So,
wow. Amazing stuff, isn't it?
Yeah, and it's all there.
David, I'm grateful to know you. I'm grateful for all you've done for me and how you've enriched my life. But I'm particularly grateful because when I was writing my book, you may recall, I called you, and because I wanted to know, I was exploring the analogy of a holistic lifestyle and an orchestra. And it was you who told me, well, it's exactly like that, because an orchestra has four components, just the way our lifestyle and spiritual, physical, social, intellectual, and an orchestra has brass and percussion and wind and strings. And if you pay attention to only one, you're not going to get the full extent of the beauty of the orchestra if one overwhelms the other, or if they're not in conjunction. So what it was a perfect example of a holistic approach to lifestyle and how we can be the best that we can be by paying attention to all aspects of who we are. And I have had people come up to me, David, and say that did it for me. That was just an explanation that I've heard the word holistic, but I never understood what it really meant. But that analogy was just perfect. So, David, I bow down to you. I'm so appreciative for you.
Thank you. And as you were speaking, I was thinking, yes, we have all these aspects, but also have a conductor and a lot of people in front of you that you have to have togetherness. Because if you don't have togetherness within an orchestra or a community, you're really sunk. It's not just always playing in tune. And that's a nice analogy too, because we want to be in tune with each other. Otherwise, we have what we have today and in the world. But you have to like people. You have to have respect. You don't have to like the conductor, but you have to have respect for the conductor. If you happen to like him as well, that's a bonus, But all these things are human conditions that we need. But I had I have one memory thing that I found so interesting, that years ago I was in a community that I've been to before, and I played this work. The Radetzky March by Johann Strauss Sr. Now, there was a woman in the participating that I knew from before. She was in her 90s. She had numbers on her arm, and she was part of the Holocaust and in concentration camps. And as soon as I started to play this music, I could see visually her face change. I looked at her and I immediately stopped. I sort of had an idea why I stopped. And we immediately went to another work. And then afterwards I went over and I said, I saw that this was disturbing. And she said, yes, it reminded me of Nazi Germany. Now, for her, it was that. For somebody else, it was a fun piece that I do often, and nothing happens. But the memory is there and associated with music. My God, I mean, Hitler used music he used Wagner, big things, to stir the crowds. It can be a very negative, powerful tool as well as beauty. Which Oliver Sacks had said too. It could be used positively and negatively, but hopefully more positively.
I can honestly say I've seen you work with all ages, bringing conductor size into lots of people's lives, all ages, all abilities. And I often describe it, and more specifically you, as this most wonderful explosion of energy and peace and love. And I've known you for at least a decade now. And I think that comes through with every email you write, every interaction I've ever had with you. And I so admire that. And I think it inspires me personally. And I think the world is absolutely influenced by your most wonderful explosion of goodness. And so I just wanted to share that. I don't think I've ever told you that. And you do so much good in the world through your language of music, of course, but also just because of who you are.
Thank you. I will remain a positive person. I really believe that. And for myself, I need that for myself as well. And it is really a joy to have worked and continue to work, hopefully with Masterpiece, I can't tell you what it does for me when I engage. I'm not always up and woo every day either. But 1 minute into the program, and I'm there already. It doesn't take very long for me to start feeling the juices run through my body and just wanting to share and wanting to give. And it doesn't matter to whom. Those people in front of me seem to get that energy, and that's what it's all about.
I've seen it. We Teresa and I for sure. I'm not sure you have, Danielle, ever seen an episode of Conductors, but I've seen it happen. All I can say is, bravo, Maestro. Please take a big bow.
Thank you very much. Thank you. This is wonderful.
Hi. We hope this podcast is a source of inspiration. If you're ready to dive deeper into these concepts and really apply them in your life, join us over at Master Life. You'll have a personalized experience and lots of support to create your own long, bright future. mymasterlife.com. You've been listening to Dr. Roger and Friends, The Bright Side of Longevity. If you like the show, please rate and review, and be sure to click to follow.